Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman. I recently borrowed a bunch of watches from a friend of mine. I've reviewed a couple of them. Tonight we're going to review the third watch that he loaned to me. And this piece isn't a vintage one. Tonight we'll be looking at his silver dial cocktail time. This is an absolutely brilliant looking watch and the second cocktail time I've had an opportunity to see in person. But there is one interesting thing about this watch, at least for me. So let's do a full review of it, and I'll explain. Let us begin. Seiko cocktail times. What a brilliant aesthetic. So absolutely mid-century in style, but definitely contemporary in size, which is perfect if you have a larger wrist. You can go for kind of a vintage vibe, but in a size that you need so it doesn't just get drowned on your wrist. My friend has the watch on this brilliant strap. The color looks so great on this watch. I don't have any light brown straps. I'm really weird. Almost all of my straps are just black. I don't know why. I just love the starkness, I think. But on this watch, I love this strap. It's kind of the leather you see on really cool couches. There was one my wife and I were looking at that was this similar color. And the interesting thing is, just from sitting on it and stuff, the leather developed stress marks on it that would actually give the furniture character. I love the variations in the color of this. This is not the original strap, but it looks so good on this watch. This is a great buckle. I actually own one exactly like this. Really solid, good looking buckle. The lugs on this watch are not drilled. Everything on it is polished. There isn't too much space in there, so that's good. The strap hugs the case pretty well, but they aren't so short that it would be a nightmare to try and put a strap on there. This watch has an exhibition case back, and it screws down. That rotor looks really cool. Automatic movements are so beautiful. There's not a ton of decoration on this one, but it still looks great. Looking at the other side there. I like how it's two-tone. The rotor's kind of a brass color. And we have some minimal amounts of text around here, just some basic information, water resistance, branding, made in Japan. Looking at the sides of the case, they're pretty basic, just vertical there. It doesn't look overly thick, but I believe the women's versions of these have the same case height and a much smaller case. I feel like those would look pretty thick because of that, but I've never seen one in person, so I'm not sure. We have kind of an oversized crown. I like the design of that crown. It kind of widens as it goes out. We have some branding on it. This is a simple push-pull. It doesn't screw down or anything like that. So let's see what it's like to use this. Pop it out. Let's get the time where it's a bit safer for trying that date out. It feels great when you're setting it, nice and smooth. Let's see if I can get this into the date position. There. It clicks over really well. Nice. And let's see how the date switches when we pass midnight. All right, so it's starting to change now at just about an hour and 20 minutes to And there, right around midnight, it clicks over. So it has a little bit over an hour of cushion there. Not too bad, very cool. Pop this back in. This watch has a small bezel here and a beautiful crystal. This is a Hardlex crystal. It's not sapphire or acrylic. So if you do scratch it, it may be difficult to get those out, but yeah. I think Hardlex is pretty tough. I haven't really had extensive experience with it. The dial of this watch is definitely the rock star of the design. I love the exaggerated pattern there. They're nice and wide at the end. Those starburst things. I absolutely love the markers on these. The minutes track around the edge is pretty subtle. And that seconds hand, look at that counterweight. I feel like that's the perfect design for this aesthetic. The date wheel is framed nicely. And I love those hands. Delphine hands are so great. And these are blued. They're very dark though. Most of the time they just appear to be black, which is kind of cool looking on this silver dial. The contrast looks great. The text on the dial isn't overbearing. We just have 2 lines and branding up at the top there. Very nice. I absolutely love cocktail times. However, I will probably never own one. There's a few reasons. One, I personally don't care for date windows. And I know myself well enough to know that as much as I would love the aesthetic of one of these watches, I would just end up choosing watches that don't have dates. It's happened in the past. I had a Dolce Vita that had a date window and I just never wore it. I loved the aesthetic and stuff, but yeah, I think the case was a little bit large for me and the date window, I preferred other watches. And secondly, speaking of size, is the case size on these. This is a mid-century style watch. It's a dressy watch. And this case is over 40 millimeters. So that is the little piece that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. And when I do a wrist shot, yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about. But bear in mind, that's to my eyes because I'm used to wearing vintage watches. I feel like for dressy pieces, even contemporary watches, it should be a little bit smaller, but that's my opinion. 40 is a pretty average size. Most people are comfortable and prefer 40 millimeter cases, so just a matter of preference, but it's interesting when I have this on my wrist. As for the specifications, the case size is 40.5 millimeters. The case height is 11.8 millimeters. The lug to lug is 47 millimeters. The lug width is 20 millimeters. So a nice standard size, easy to find straps for this thing. The crystal is Hardlex. And the movement that's inside this is a 4R35. And I believe the reference number on this watch is the SRPB77. At least those look identical to this watch, so I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Alright, so let me take off the Benris. I currently have this on one of my Vietnamese straps. This one is ostrich. These straps just fit so well. This is the buckle that it shipped on. I don't think I've really had to do any micro adjusting on these straps. They just fit perfectly. The Benris, so cool. Alright, so let me take this off and we'll see what the cocktail time looks like when you're wearing it. Here is the cocktail time on my 7-inch wrist. And my wrist is about 52 to 55 millimeters wide, depending on how I'm holding my arm. And I'm so used to wearing vintage watches, this looks comically huge. That is just gigantic. So crazy. I mean, look at that. It might just be me, but this is just way too huge. Yeah. I've tried channeling my former self from back when I loved large watches, but it still just looks hilarious every time I look down. It's a brilliant watch, but it is definitely contemporary in size. It'd be cool if there were different sizes you could choose from. Maybe this size, a 36 or 35, and then ladies at 34 or 32. So kind of a men's, a unisex, and a ladies. It is a brilliant watch. It is just way too huge for me personally. Love the design though. And I mean, it's called a cocktail time. Brilliant. So there you have it, a gorgeous cocktail time. It's just a bit too big for me personally. Like I said, I'm so used to seeing vintage watches on my wrist that this looks comically large. But it's brilliant. Thanks for watching.